today, it's all about the power cylinders. Okay guys, Field Marshal here. I get this, I've made many videos about these power cylinders over the last few years, but there's still a lot of confusion about them. I'm going to go over how I create my replica, and also I'm going to touch just briefly on where they actually came from and the other props they're on in Star Wars. These are mostly seen in the original series in A New Hope, and one of the best places is on the E-11 blaster. Now I took the scope off of this so we could kind of see it better. This is a Field Marshal replica, aluminum replica, that Scott Juarez has done a really good job of weathering and texturing, so make sure you pay attention to his builds too with these kits. But the power cylinders are located here on top of the mag well. Okay, right in front of the Heinzer counter here. Okay, you see that? And what's really neat about these things is that we know what they are, but we don't know exactly where they came from because they're out of a tube array or some type of tube amp. It's not a found part yet, and we found some components of it actually. One of the coolest things that they've discovered is these are little metal mite, little capacitors in between here, and you see my replicas here. I've got the actual logos on them and everything, and a really nice copy of the real thing. Here, let me set this down and I'll show you. Actually, some years ago I actually found some real ones, vintage ones. These things are ancient, but of course they went in old tube amps and things, and they've still got the wrappers on them. And I do sell these vintage ones. They're super rare, but they are available. Next thing I wanted to show you, kind of where, just quickly background wise, since we touched on that, and I'll try to post the pictures on this, but they were out of an old tube array. And on the back of the tube array where they cut them out, you're going to see that there's 5 different shapes, okay, where the back plates are cut differently, where they snipped them out of the plate, out of the tube array. And I think I've got a better picture of that to kind of show you where I'll post these. This is actually a big reference book that I created back when I was studying to do the prop. And a guy on the RPF goes by the name Playful Wolf actually did an extraordinary reference thread, and I highly suggest, I'll post that too, but a lot of what we know about them is because of his research. But you may recognize these were on the Luke speeder. You'll see these are little rays all over everything. You'll see these little things in their targeting systems in the movie, but the whole racks were actually used on the speeder, and you'll actually see them on top of the mouse droid too. So whatever amp this was, they must have found a bunch of them because they put these things on everything. And I'm surprised we haven't actually discovered which amp or what they came from. I've heard there's some kind of radar array amplifier, or some public address system. Who knows? So maybe if you take a look at the thread, you might run across it at some vintage shop. Who knows? Be nice. Okay, first of all, when I do these things over here, John, I start out, I cut I had to draw these up and laser cut them, and they start off right here from my replica. Okay, they're just flat, and this is a cylinder. This would be the A shape. Okay, and if you notice here, you can see here's A. Notice the profile. Okay, B. Yes, a little different. Okay, C is very similar, but instead of scooping down, it scoops over. See that? They also have different holes in the bottom. D, you see D, yes, D. This was a hack job. These are really were taken out of there pretty rough, not symmetrical. So, and then you get to E, it's a more squared off cut when they took it out. Okay, so that's where I'm starting off at, and after that, you know, the two big cylinders on the side, which I machine, and they've got a slot in them. And I use this fixture right here. I assemble them, fixture them, and the little wings and tabs here, I have to have them welded together. So that's the little fixture. There's a lot goes into them. That's some very intricate welding. Okay, back to the bench here. Okay, now you saw this, this, and after we get them tack welded together here, that's what I've got. Okay, pretty solid construction there. I think the real ones probably weren't welded, they were brazed, but this is a lot stronger, especially if you're trooping. And if you notice, most of the blasters in the film, these are gone. That's because they, I don't know, they use chewing gum or glue or something to hold them on, so they fell off pretty easily. Also I'll post a chart too that's from that same thing on the RPF, and I think Playful Wolf did this one too, but he did a chart. And I post this quite regularly because people ask me all the time, A, B, C, D, or E, which one you use. This has got a breakdown of the ones that are seen in the movie and what type of scope they've got and what type of cylinders they had on them and counter or anything. So that's a really good reference point if you're doing your build from scratch, okay? After this, spray painted flat black, and I got that to work with. So after that, nothing to it but to just kind of put it together. Now I strategically kind of make the metal mite parts show. And let me get a couple of my trusty tools here out that I use. Okay, because obviously you like to see the cool stuff. Okay, metal mite, and I start sliding these in position. Okay, fold that around, which I'll solder this in a minute just for effect. The real ones, this was actually a circuit, so this is just kind of mocked up. And then this one here is on this side, so everybody in the reference photos you'll see this little serial number here, so I'm going to make it face out this side, so if you're looking this way down the side you'll be able to see it. Bend that around. Now this kit is offered in pieces. I mean, there's some of you, it actually comes in, you're separated, and everybody, you know, you braze them or weld them or glue them or whatever you do from scratch. So this may help some of you guys that wanted to do this from scratch too. So now there's a third one. If you see right here is a third one on top. So we need to do it. And I always make sure I kind of get the metal mic kind of facing up because you're going to see that one. Now on the real prop, there's guys will jump on you about this, but they're so spray painted black that some of this stuff really doesn't show. And like in Scott's build here, I wanted them to show, so he just kind of airbrushed around them so that the metal mites would show. Let's see if I can get this one bent right. Okay. Loop it around there. Okay, so I've got this part. Now, on the sides, and in some of the reference photos, which you need to go to the RPF and look this thread up on the power cylinder build. If you don't, then hey, whatever. You know, there's those out there that'll go the deep dive and actually learn where the props come from, and you know they're so interesting. But you know, if you're one of those guys that really doesn't care, then don't worry about it. But there's some of the inside of that capacitor that shows. That's why I have the slot on the side. So I do this copper-looking thing to kind of mimic, you know, the internals of that, and the little screws, which these guys are fun to find over here in the U.S. Maybe not in the UK, but they're 10BA and 10BA little nuts. They're super fun to find. Tiny, but I've got those, so we'll start putting this part of it together. I have these machined.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Well, here, let's phone going nuts here. Okay, dropping it. Okay, So I have these colored kind of a copper color. I actually anodize these, but sometimes people will wrap them in copper tape or whatever. So I'll start off with one side. Then the caps. You notice I have these little caps on them. And that's what this little nut driver's for. Okay. And put that through the back there. And right here, put the front one on. Tell you what, you better work over the table with these, because if you drop them and they hit the floor, you may never see them again. Okay, that's one side of it. Okay. Whoops. Little guy's hard to get started. Okay. Same thing. Okay. Now, I also, on the real ones, the nuts don't stick, I mean the screws don't stick out, so after I get done, I just kind of clip those off. Okay. That was pretty close. There we go. Okay. Now, fun part. Now, I think I got some of these left down here. Get scavenged in old electronic stores, but you got to find these old resistors. Look at those guys. These things are, probably, they're 70s stuff. And you clip them, and they're on the back, which I'll have some reference photos, but essentially you got to mount them on the back here. They're in the array, and we'll solder them onto the leads back here. Got the old trusty soldering iron. Okay, and I've already those resistors, I clip them, and then they're supposed to kind of wire together into this, but I found that it's a lot easier if I go ahead and connect these this way and put some solder on them. It's a lot easier to connect them, and once you got them together, you can't tell. I mean, in the real circuit this wouldn't work, but for looks wise it looks perfect. So I'll go ahead and put a glob there and go ahead and get some on where they're going. Okay, let's get this one here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to attach it to this one. This one, the lead will actually get cut off in just a minute here. One nice pretty joint there. Okay, and then this one. And there again, you don't have to worry about doing a super job with this, because from the pictures, these things were not lined up. They were kind of what you'd expect off a production piece of equipment, Okay, got that done. So got this happening. Now this lead here gets gone, so I'm going to cut it off, and I actually saved that wire. These little wires that I stick in the metal mites here, they're actually the drops off of the resistors that I cut to make these. So I saved those, so I got a vintage piece of wire to go in my replicas, which I thought was pretty cool. Next thing is there's these wires where they clipped them, and they're cloth wires. So in order to kind of reproduce that, what I do is I use this old, you can still buy this, you can still see it online where you can get this old copper cloth wire. And what I do, instead of worrying, what you dropping on yourself there, John?
Raining cables on me there.
Okay, but I go ahead and I take the wire out of them, because what I'm going to do is use the wires from the metal mites that are already attached. So this is kind of the final little touch to kind of make them look authentic, is just slide those on there, hold on to that, get that up in there, and these just cut the ends off, and then just kind of bend them, because they're kind of curled up in the array. So I just kind of randomly do that right there, and then boom, you got a cylinder there ready to go on an E-11. Now I did notice some people had a good idea. They'll get a round magnet and put under here, and then they can put it over there, which works really good. But hey, there you have it.